Hello everyone, my name is Noah Oswald and today I will be showing you how I made this Toploader rotating display. Let's start with the card display. I learned the hard way that the easiest way to make this part is in layers, so I chose to make the back panel and front sections out of 1/8 inch plywood using a laser cutter. To act as a spacer between the two panels, I chose to use a very thin ABS plastic, which I cut on a bandsaw. The adhesive I chose to join these parts was a clear dry JB Weld 2-part epoxy. Once I made 4 individual card holders, I moved on to sanding their long edges down to 45 degrees. This let me easily align them with other parts of my model and glue them together with the JB Weld. Overall, this component's manufacturing process was highly repeatable, and the use of laser cutting really made it a lot more efficient. Now that the card display is done, let's move on to the next components. I'm going to lump the next 3 components in with each other since they're all made using the same manufacturing process. The lid, rotating base, and housing were all cast from a 2-part polyurethane resin. To begin the process, I 3D printed my models from PLA. When designing the models, I made sure to incorporate draft angles to allow for easy demolding down the road. Next, I traced and cut out retaining walls for each PLA component, giving about a ½ inch of room on each side of the part. I decided to use an octagon base for the circular components to avoid wasted silicone. Once all my cutouts were done, I hot glued each container so that it wouldn't leak when it was time to pour. The silicone I chose to use was a simple 1-to-1 mix with a 6 to 8 hour cure time. I realized that I was much shorter on silicone than I expected and had to order some more to create the last mold. After about a day passed, I broke the hardened silicone out of its retainment walls and cut the part free. I cut the mold completely in half for the rotating base, which ended up causing some trouble later on, so I'd recommend trying to keep your mold in one piece when cutting the core free. Once that was done, I prepared the polyurethane resin with some pigment paste and began to pour. I ran into some issues with the rotating base leaking, but I was able to contain it and finish casting my parts. After about 10 to 20 minutes, I carefully removed the parts and let them cool and harden. I tried to remove the housing a bit too early and created a small groove in the housing on accident, so I'd make sure that they're fully hardened if they're hard to remove. Once the parts were cool, I touched up some necessary edges with sandpaper and moved on to the assembly step. For this project, I made a very simple circuit involving a 30 RPM gear motor, a cheap speed controller, and a barrel jack, all of which had room to be mounted in the housing. Once the electronics were inserted into the housing, I was able to put together all of the parts. Gravity is the backbone of this design and is enough to keep all the parts in their place, assuming the base is on level ground. Overall, I learned a lot from this project and would do several things differently if I were able to complete it again, but for having no experience with a lot of these manufacturing processes, I've got to say I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Thank you all for watching, and until next time.